So I'm just on my walk and I'm musing about Scottish independence the day after, or 2 days after, I think it's Nicola Sturgeon made their announcement about holding a referendum on the question, 19th October 2023. I think she's been very astute in how she's framed it and how she intends to deal with the likely non-cooperation of the Johnson regime with regards to issuing a Section 30, that if so, that she will make the next general election in 2024 a single issue campaign in Scotland on the question of independence, and thereby make it a plebiscite on Scottish independence. But there's a lot of water to pass under the bridge before that happens, and I think it's important to understand what we mean by independence. We'll all have different views on that. I think for Sturgeon and her followers, it's about not rocking the boat too much, which I think was a mistake in 2014 with regards to the white paper. When it came to issues of the currency, the detention of sterling, which would have turned Scotland into a de facto colony of England, given that the Bank of England in London would have controlled our interest rates and with it our fiscal policy. With regards to retention of the monarchy as a head of state, I think now, with support for the monarchy in Scotland at an all-time low, I think the last poll had it at 45%. It's a strong case to be made for a Scottish Republic, modern democratic republic with an elected head of state, like most normal democratic countries have nowadays. Are we really expected as Scottish taxpayers of an independent country to be paying for this outdated, arcane, out of touch, disconnected monument to class privilege and inherited wealth? I don't think so. I think also the issue of NATO membership's a problem for me. I'm against NATO in every particular. It's not a defensive military alliance. Ask the people of Afghanistan or Serbia or the former Yugoslavia, the people of Libya, about the tender mercies of NATO. Is this kind of sword of democracy or shield of democracy? It's a sword of imperialism and hegemony. I think an independent Scotland should be an advocate for peace, a beacon for peace. I think we should model ourselves on Norway, a country of similar population, geography, and with the same resources, energy, and look at what Norway's achieved with regard to its society. Social democratic, mixed market economy, a high level of social and economic justice, progressive taxation. The differential between rich and poor is marginal compared to what we have in this country, where poverty has never been more endemic, normalised, as has greed. We need to change that dynamic. So I think these are the questions and the debates we should be having now in the lead up. Not in the spirit of schism, but in the spirit of incubating progressive ideas and solutions to the challenges of the 21st century, of which there are clearly many. Since Brexit in 2016, the UK has become one of the most brutal, barbaric, cruel and insular countries in Europe, if not the world. Nativism, English nationalism, xenophobia, anti-migrant hostility towards refugees. The centre of gravity is shifted way to the right. You see this reflected in the normalisation of far-right tropes, far-right ideas, which are presented to us as common sense ideas. The establishment of entities such as GB News, Nigel Farage being presented to us as a man of the people, where he's a right-wing whack job, in truth. All of that. So, anyway, I'm just walking along the Spey, a couple of people out fishing. Very nice. So all these questions and more, I think, are now up for discussion, given that we now have a date for a second referendum on independence. As for EU membership, I'm conflicted. I think we should definitely have a close relationship with the EU, perhaps membership of the single market. But as for the euro, after the Eurozone crisis in 2015, I'm not sure it's a good idea, given what befell Greece and Cyprus and Ireland, Portugal. I think the EU suffers from being not politically enough united, but fiscally too closely united, so in times of economic crisis, which we've experienced in our lifetime with the 2008 economic financial crash, it's played havoc in the lives of working people across the EU. But certainly an open relationship with the EU, but I see us more aligned with Scandinavia as part of a northern trading bloc. It's high time that we broke this barbaric, brutal, post-colonial state that's no longer fit for purpose. The only thing that it has to maintain some kind of relevancy is nostalgia for an empire that should be a source of shame for every right-thinking person. As I said in another video, Scotland and its people have been corrupted by its union with this imperialist colonial state. And I think the breakup of the UK would be a cause for celebration, not only in Scotland and across these islands. Ireland and Wales would hopefully take heart and be inspired by that event, but also across the world, wherever the butcher's apron has flown. So anyway, just a few thoughts. Boris Johnson is a cunt. Priti Patel is a scumbag. Let's make no bones about it. These are liars, these are charlatans, these are Eton educated extremists, privileged, privately educated, impervious to reason, impervious to decency, impervious to integrity. Not that I'm perfect, but I'm not in government. And I'm certainly not someone who thinks that sending desperate refugees who've got on rickety boats across the channel at the risk of their lives after a perilous journey from the Middle East or North Africa should be sent to Rwanda. Send them to Scotland. Somebody who has the courage and the tenacity to go through such a tortuous experience. These are surely the kind of people we need in Scotland. A country that's welcoming to refugees and migrants. A country that doesn't have a focus on the power of its military as validation, as the source of its identity. We need to get rid of Trident. We're now hearing noises from within the SNP leadership that Trident is now up for debate, where before it was always a given. I think there's been a hysterical and emotional response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which, coming on to that, is proof positive that what we call news is really propaganda. Russia is not the evil, dark power depicted. Ukraine was a non-negotiable issue for Russia's security, given the status of Crimea. It's part of the Russian Federation, and NATO's Article 5, if Ukraine had become a member of NATO, potentially it could have attacked Ukraine. Russia defended it, then Article 5 could have been invoked. That's why the Russians decided that Ukraine was one step too far. Why do we need NATO? The Cold War was meant to have ended. I'm not a fan of Putin. I've been accused of that. Just because I try and understand Russia's position. Putin is a harsh, brutal, but murderous man. Clearly, leading his country through a harsh, brutal, murderous time in human affairs. And Russia's history has just come out of the disaster that was visited on the country with the free market experiment in the wake of the collapse of the Soviet Union. That's ingrained in the Russian psyche. I just remind you that Putin came to power in 2000 is just as pro-Western as Yeltsin, his predecessor. In 2000, he even mooted the idea of Russia joining NATO, suggesting it in a meeting with then US President Bill Clinton. In the wake of 9/11, Putin's was one of the first phone calls to George W. Bush to pledge support and solidarity. This he did with the provision of Russian air bases in Central Asia for US aircraft to use to carry out airstrikes against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. So you don't have to approve of the direction in which Putin has taken Russia to understand that he's taken it where the West has led it over succeeding years. The people of the Donbass, the Russian ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking pro-Russian Ukrainians in the Donbass, were subjected to 8 years of military siege and bombardment, 14,000 dead. We never hear that covered in the news. Ukraine is not the innocent party depicted. Zelensky was elected in 2019 on a pledge to implement the protocols of Minsk II, which would allow for political autonomy for the people of the Donbass within a wider Ukraine context, and a ceasefire between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatist forces. He came to power in Kiev and he resigned from those positions. I think his policy towards Russia was captured by the neo-Nazis and ultra-nationalists that have such influence on Ukrainians' political trajectory and have had since the Maidan coup of 2014. 50 trade unionists were burned to death in a trade union hall in Odessa in the wake of Maidan by these ultra-nationalists and neo-Nazis. Burned to death. Again, this is not something that we hear in the Western news media because it doesn't suit the narrative. The narrative is the West is a latter-day Rome and Russia a latter-day Carthage, and that therefore peaceful coexistence is impossible. Russia is now depicted as a deadly foe that must be vanquished. This is incompatible with reality and it's incompatible with reason. Anyway, I'm rambling a lot of shite now, so I'll let you go there. Just a few thoughts while out on my walk. Take it easy. Bye bye.